2022. This is Live Talk. I am Kip Stube in Washington. Tonight on Live Talk, we are talking about the planned protests in Zimbabwe. There was heavy police presence today in Zimbabwe's capital city ahead of planned protests by government workers and citizens over poor wages, economic problems, and human rights violations. Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition says it was summoned by police after announcing mass protests this week. Government workers say their strike will go ahead this week if their demands for a living wage are not met. Workers are demanding a minimum pay of $840 per month. Currently, the lowest paid government worker gets about $50 United States dollars and an allowance of up to $175 per month. Health workers last week rejected a 100% salary hike, citing high inflation. They also want to be paid in United States dollars. The government says it does not have resources to pay workers in foreign currency. Peter Mtasa of Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition speaks about the planned strikes with our correspondent, Godwin Mangosha.
How did your march go today?
So we have notified the Zimbabwe Republic Police of our intention to have a march, a procession, a protest on 22 July, where we need to hand off our petition to the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission and the Parliament of Zimbabwe. So today we were called in by the police and we had a dialogue around confirming that it is indeed the Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition that has given that notification. We are now awaiting the police's response on Wednesday, and this is where we are now.
We saw there was a huge police presence in the city center. Is it because of your program?
The government is generally afraid. It's afraid of the people. It's afraid of the citizens. We understand that the government is failing to provide public services. It's failing to provide decent wages. Cost of living is going up, and the government is failing to address the economic challenges. The government is also afraid of itself within its own party, and we don't know exactly where the fear is coming from, but we know it's a government that is failing, and the government that is failing that is becoming so afraid of its own citizens.
So what will you do if you are not granted permission to march by the Zimbabwe Republic Police?
We are not expecting that the police would deny us the opportunity to exercise our constitutional rights, because these are rights that are enshrined in the Constitution, and there is nothing in law that the police can use against us. We have notified them on time, and they have not raised any concern about our process. So we are expecting them to allow us to have our procession. If they don't do so, we will then approach the courts, and we don't expect the judiciary to be an appendage of a particular interest group like the ruling party. We expect the judiciary to explain and lay out what the law says, and we think that the judiciary will do so. If it fails, if both the ZRP and the judiciary fails us, then we've got no option than to simply call citizens to get into the city and protest and exercise their constitutional rights.
Well, and lastly, are you getting enough solidarity from all the civic society groups and opposition political parties who are also suffering at the bad policies by the government?
So our call and our intention to protest is to protest against the deteriorating human rights situation in the country and the continued persecution of human rights.
That was Peter Mtasa of Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition speaking with our correspondent Godwin Mangosha from Harare. In Shona, this is how he summed up the planned protests.
Mungatitsanangurira kuti machi yenyu amai makaronga yafamba sei nhasi?
Right, nhasi tashedzwa kumapurisa techizivisana nemapurisa kuti hongu tisu takaronga machi yatinoda kuti tiite musi wa22 yatinoda kuita techifamba muguta reHarare techinanga kuZimbabwe Human Rights Commission, techinanga kuParliament of Zimbabwe kuti tinosiya gwaro rokunyunyuta pamusoro pokutyorwa kwekodzero dzevanhu munyika, vanomirira vashandi, vanomirira varayiridzi vanomirira macivil society organization, masangano akazvimirira, vanomirirawo mapato anopikisa hurumende, matongerwo enyika, navanhuwo zvavo vari kungombunyikidzwa munyika. Uyezve kusungwa kuri kuitwa vanhu vakasiyana siyana ivavo, kodzero dzavo dzechityorwa nedzimwewo kodzero dzavanhu dzakangosiyana siyana vagere munyika. Saka nhasi taenda kumapurisa vachida kunzwisisa kuti tisu here Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition vakanyora gwaro tikazivisa kuti ichokwadi kuti ndo zvatinoda kuti tiite. Saka tamirira mapurisa vati vanotizivisa mhinduro yavo musi wechitatu, ndo yetamirira.
Saka muchaita sei kana vakakunyimai mvumo yokuti munge muchipinda mumigwagwa?
Hatisi kutarisira kunyimwa mvumo nokuti zvese zvinotarisirwa kuti tinge takaita pamutemo takaita, uye havana chimwe chavatiudza kuti tatadza kuchitevedzera chiri pamutemo. Tiri kutarisira kuti mutemo unotitendera, uye bumbiro remutemo, constitution yenyika, inotitendera kuti tive nekodzero idzodzo dzekunyunyuta nekufamba zviri zvinyoronyoro uye zvisina mhirizhonga, tichiratidzira kuti hurumende igadzirise zvinhu zvatinonyunyuta nazvo. Asiwo kana zvikaramba, mutemo unotitendera kuti timhanye kumatare, tichivimbawo kuti matare havarambe vachimbunyikidzawo kodzero dzavashandi dzatiri kunyunyuta, kodzero dzavagari vemunyika dzatiri kunyunyuta, kodzero dzavadzidzi, asi vanotongawo zvakaenzerana kuti vanhu vapiwe kodzero dzavo. Asi kana zvarambawo kuti kwese kumapurisa zvaramba, kwese kumatare zvaramba, tinenge taakungoti vanhu ngatichiitei kuti tiratidzire pasina anotidzivisa, nokuti mutemo unotitendera kuratidzira pasina anotidzivisa. Saka tinenge taakupinda tega mumigwagwa.
Totarisawo, muri kuwanawo here rutsigiro kubva namamwe masangano nemapato anopikisa avo vari kubatwawo neutongo hwakaipa huri munyika?
Takatura nyaya iyi papress conference vhiki rakapfuura, asi takanga tine rutsigiro kubva kuma-students, takanga tine rutsigiro kubva kuma-union, ma-trade union.
That was Peter Mutasa of Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition speaking with our VOA Zimbabwe correspondent, Godwin Mangosha. Godwin also spoke about the same issue with David Tsatsunga, Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Confederation of Public Sector Trade Unions.
Give us an update on your planned job action. How far have you gone?
Well, the current situation is that the unions have given an ultimatum of 14 days or a notice of 14 days to the Minister of Labour, and that 14 days will elapse on Thursday. And on Thursday, all the unions are going to meet to decide on what form or shape the action will take. That's precisely the situation as it stands.
We've seen heavy police deployment in the city center, particularly those areas around government offices and so forth. I mean, are you going to proceed given the latest development?
We don't see how the deployment of police would affect our labor action. We have not said we are going to march. We have not said we are going to make noise. We have said that we are going to make a statement to the employer to say we are hungry. This is not a political thing. This is just about our welfare, our lives, and the hunger that we are suffering right now. So it's not really there whether the police are in the streets or not, because this is more of an issue to do with labor, and it will be happening in the workplaces, not in the streets.
And do you think you're getting enough solidarity from the citizens who are also facing the same problems as yourselves?
Well, in terms of what we hear, we know that most of the citizens are with us. In terms of what they feel for us. Imagine we are getting money that does not work in the economy. We are being paid money in order to buy money. And that creates a lot of sympathy, empathy on the part of our citizens. And we know very well that we do have a lot of goodwill from a lot of people.
That was David Zatsunga, Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Confederation of Public Sector Trade Unions, speaking with the VOA Zimbabwe Services correspondent, Godwin Manguzga, in Harare. Here is Zatsunga's take in Shona.
Yekuratidzira pamusoro pemuhoro yaapapi tiri kunzwa hurumende iri kuti munofanira kunge muchisiyana nenyaya
chokwadi chiripo ndechekuti isu kuti tizosvika padanho iri takasvika maringe nokuti hurumende haisi kutaurirana nesu zvakanaka vari kungoita madiro saka isu tikataurirana tikasawirirana ivo vavo tiri kungobhadhara zvatisina kuwirirana izvozvo zvinotongoreva kuti hapasisina nhaurirano dzatiri kuita saka isu takatoona kuti tinde kudare iri renjnc hapana zvazvichatibatsira nokuti takanguri tabvirira kuinda tichingombunyikidzwa tisingapiwo kodzero dzokuti isusu zvatinotaura zviteererwe. Hurumende inongouya neinonzi take it or leave it. Saka takaona kuti zvinhu zvinotiremera kuti tirambe tichishanda mashandiro iwawo. Saka saizvozvo zvakamira saizvozvo tasvika zvino pachinhano chokuti isu takuda kumboratidzira avo ndo simba rogara tinaro sevashandi rokuratidzira nokuti timbo withdraw labor yedu. Saka zvichaitika ndezvokuti musi weThursday masangano ese anomirira vashandi vehurumende achasangana nokuti ndo pachapera 14 days dzatakapa hurumende kuti vaone zvavangaita. Kana vakaitawo zvinotigutsa before Thursday tinotarisira kuti zvinhu zvinogona kuita nerimwe divi, but as it stands izvozvi zvazvinoreva ndezvokuti musi weThursday ndo musi watichataurirana, ndo unopera 14 days, ndo musi watichataurirana kuti tofamba sei nenyaya iyi, kuti toenda kupi, towirirana sevashandi kuti action yedu yatichatora ichange iri yorudzi rupi.
Tiri kuonawo mapurisa adirwa mumigwagwa, saka muchaita sei nemusi wechina kana musi wechishanu?
Isu zvemapurisa hazvinyanyi kuti kashamadza, zvinhu zvatinongoziva zvinongogara zvichiitika kuti kana vashandi vati taane nzara isu mapurisa anogona kungoonekwa achibuda, asi isuzve hatisi kuda kuita mhirizhonga. Hondo yatiri kurwa haisi yezvematongerwo enyika, inongova hondo yedumbu. Dumbu ndo chinhu chinoda kuti chigadziriswe, vanhu vane zhara. Saka isusu hatizvitariri zvedu, tichangosangana tinenge tichiita zvinhu zvedu tiri pamwe chete tisina zvimwe tisingadi zvimwe zvinozobingaidza meseji yedu.
That was David Zatsunga, Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Confederation of Public Sector Trade Unions, speaking with Godwin Manguzga. Kambe izulukanda njalo pekhona endaweni zonke zomhlaba lamhla sikhangela khona ukuthi isebenzi zikahulumende labanye abantu elizweni bafuna ukufola ngolwesine, bafola nje ngesikhathi bekhuluma khona ukuthi iholo liphansi, bona bahola iZimbabwe dollar, kodwa ke okumele ukuthi bakuthole ezitolo ngapha kunzima ngoba sebehola ke sebefika ezitolo bezokuthiwa impahla ibiza ama-United States dollars. So bayakhala kakhulu abantu. Limboneke uDavid Zatsunga ekhuluma ngakhonokho ukuthi hayi bantu sicela ukuthi sifole sitshengisele. Amapholisa kukhanya ngani abegcwele lamhlanje eHarare, emele lithi abantu betshengisele. Siyakwazi ukuthi nxa amapholisa ekhona emgwaqweni kwabe kuhamba njani. So ndiyo nyaya yacho nasi tiri kutaura nenyaya iyi yokuti vanhu vanoda kuratidzira kuZimbabwe vachigunun'una nenyaya yemuhoro. So vanoda muhoro unosvika $840 per month per person. So ke kuyahlupha kakhulu ke uhulumende ukuthi imali leyo kalayo yokuthi aholise abantu. So ke siqhubeka siya phambili, siyabona ukuthi abantu abanengi balambile, sikhuluma nje eZimbabwe bafuna iholo elingcono. Siyabonga kakhulu ke ukuthi lingene kuhlelo lilaleleke ukuthi siyabuya kini. So please stay tuned because we are going to take a very, very short break. We'll be back, so stay tuned. For those that have just joined this show, please note that we are streaming this discussion live on Facebook pages, VOA Shona, VOA Studio 7, and VOA Ndebele. We're also live on YouTube, VOA Zimbabwe. You can also find us on our websites, www.voandebele.com, www.voashona.com, and www.voazimbabwe.com. Send us your messages right now on our social media platforms. We are here for you. And now we are being joined by our first guest, and that is Mr. Ambrose Sibindi of the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions. Sibindi is also the chairperson of the Bulawayo Progressive Residents Association. Welcome to the program, Mr. Sibindi.
Thank you so much. Good evening to all listeners.
Thank you very much. So people are planning to stage some protests. Give us your take on this. What's going on?
Well, I think I will say people are not trying to stage a protest, but people are just they're trying to give a statement to the government of Zimbabwe. We all know that as a trade unionist or as people working, in terms of the law of Zimbabwe, there is what we call a collective bargaining process. Brings in representatives from the workers and the employers. They come together, they discuss, and then they make the way forward. But in this situation, in particular, the issue of the civil servants and other sectors in Zimbabwe, there have been quite a number of these collective bargaining that have taken place, but it seems our employers, in particular, the main employer, which is the government, they seem not to listen to the workers. And eventually what really happens in the process is that people tend to lose faith in their leaders who are representing them. And because of that, the government is trying to bring a war between workers and those who are representing them. And this, what is going to happen now is just to show that when leaders are coming up to the negotiating table, they are not speaking for themselves, but they are speaking for the masses, the workers who are in grassroots. I think the whole idea now that people must talk is going to prove to the employer of the government that people are saying they are representing the views of the people. So why are people doing that? Surely, Zimbabwe now, when we talk, we look at our economy, you look at the cost of living, it's just out of this world. For instance, somebody will tell you that the forward datum line lies above around 200,000. But in all honesty, that's not the reality, to tell the truth. Because the PTL of Zimbabwe changes every hour now. How is it changing every hour? If you go to these stores whereby you buy goods and items, those people change their price willy-nilly or on an hourly basis, if not on minute basis. Why are they doing that? It's because of the situation that they find themselves in.
Yeah, but ngasikhangela baba Sibindi singathi ke ukutshengisela kumbe ukufola yikho kuzalethelana abantu khonokho. Into elungileyo
ukutshengisela kumbe ukufola kuyinto elungileyo ngoba kusemthethweni. I-Constitution yeZimbabwe yakunika ilungelo ukuthi nxa ulento ongayizwisiyo njengesisebenzi kumbe njengomhlali weZimbabwe uyavunyelwa ukutshengisela nxa le imizamo usuyizamile yehlula. Kade sikhuluma kanje imizamo yokunegotiate kumbe yokukhulumisana isizanye but ikhanye yehlula. Yikho abantu sebesiya ukuthi hayi sicela ke uhulumende, sicela ama-employers, sicela umhlaba ubone ukuthi hayi lapha eZimbabwe asiphathekanga kuhle. so yikho sokusenzakala kade sila and esilethemba lokuthi uhulumende uzathatha lokho akunanzelele ngoba le ultimatum enikweyo le 14 days notice okuba liphele ngezezibheni lesho uhulumende uzakunanzelela ukuthi izisebenzi ngabantu abahloniphayo abantu abahlonipha umthetho abalalelayo futhi so ingqobe isezandleni kahulumende ukuthi yena abonke uyaresponda positive ngoba kade sihlubo olukhona sikhuluma kanje abantu bayahola imali uqeda uhola imali awuyisebenzisi uphuma lapho uyadingela imali uyahola i-RTGS leyo because ayisathenga ayisasebenza ezitolo so kufanele ngithathe i-RTGS leyo ngihambe futhi ngiyedinga idola lemelika ukuthi ngingese ukuthenga ulutho asiyompilo leyo
yes
imali engiyiholayo kufanele ibe yimali ezenza ukuthi ngithenge izinto zihambe lokuthi thatha nasi imali sengunikile senilomlando futhi uyadinga imali yakona idurayo sikhuluma kade kade
siyakuzwa kakhulu baba isikhathi sankhona yiso singani sedliwe ngumangoye baba uSibindi ungadilwa kusasa baba
okay
yes siyabonga kakhulu that was Mr. Ambrose Sibindi, who is the chairperson of the Bulawayo Progressive Residents Association, and he also belongs to the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions. So now we are joined by another guest, and that is Mr. Joseph Chuma. Mr. Chuma is a ZANU-PF Central Committee member, and he's also the former member of Parliament for Pelandaba Popoma. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you very much. So, Babu Chuma, we know that there's many things happening in Zimbabwe, but at the moment, there's some people who are planning to stage protests starting on Thursday. You know, they're complaining about human rights violations. They're complaining about, you know, the state of the economy. So, what's your take on that?
Well, let me first of all say that it is unfortunate that we have a lot of people that are bent on demonizing this country, people that don't talk factual issues, actually. They want to peddle their own narratives all the time, and it is very unfortunate. Yes, we are experiencing economic turmoil, just like any other country. I'm sure America, I was reading the other day that a gallon of fuel had gone up to over $5 for the first time in so many years. In England, the inflations are also up, and they're destroying people's incomes and everything. We are also suffering from that. But in all the other countries, if you look at it, people are working together to try and address issues. I read the other day that in America, the price of a gallon had gone down to about $4 something now. And all these are collective issues where people come together and work for the betterment of their country and the economy without necessarily having to go out there and demonize your own country and actually then sabotage your own economy even worse.
But in this case,
right now,
Mr. Chuma,
we are facing a situation whereby business, the business people, the shop owners are actually taking out things from shelves in the shops and putting them outside there, selling them in US dollar, to create a sort of an artificial shortage. Then that's when people will now start saying that I earn in Zimbabwe dollars, but I have to change my money into US dollars to get stuff. But if you go into the shops, you can swipe using the local currency and everything. But our own business people then sabotage such things and take out those things and put them in the black market purposefully. So then how do we build when we have situations like that?
Yeah, but I think maybe the problem is people are earning their pay in Zimbabwe dollars, and many prices are in US dollars. So how do you come to meet to that kind of thing? Yeah.
The prices in the shops games are actually in Zimbabwe dollar, not US dollar. There are shops that do sell in US dollar as well, and even in most supermarkets, you can actually use the US dollar if you so wish. But prices are normally pegged in Zimbabwe dollar. But that's what I'm saying, that now you find unscrupulous business people that will then withdraw some of these products, especially things like mealie meal, cooking, all the basics. You will find them in the streets, but not in the shops. And we are very clear about it, that these things will be belonging to Shop X. But Shop X, because he wants US dollar, he takes them out from the shop and he puts them to the black market. They've got their runners that will be doing that outside their shops, which is very unfortunate and very unfair to the consumer. Why are we not being sincere? Why do you want to profit here so much? You know, in any business, we know that there are certain profit margins that are supposed to be adhered to. But here in Zimbabwe, the problem that we have is that everybody wants to make over 100% profit all the time. And this then cascades down to the basic guy, to me and you. And it starts eradicating my purse. Now my money now seems like it has become useless, but because of somebody who's just greedy, somebody who just wants to be corrupt. And it's so very, very unfair.
And some people are complaining about human rights violations. Akufake sishona kulabanye amacela khona ukuthi uthi ukuthi human rights violations lezi zime njani ngombono wakho ngamafishane sibili ngesishona khona.
Okay. Nyaya yema-human rights inyaya inosirisa zvikuru. Hatifanigwe kutomboonekwa tichishungurudzana nevanhu, asi kune mutemo zve. Uwo ukabuda apo wotyora mutemo, now because iwe unobelonga to a certain bato, woda kuti aiwa wongobuda uri scot free, it becomes unfair. Like I've always said, ukatarisa even kutriple C kwacho ikoko, tine vanhu vakawanda vari mubato iroriya vatisatamboona vechisungwa, vasatamboona vechienda kunana kami prison kana kuti kunana chikurudhi uko. Nemhaka yei? Nemhaka yekuti havasati vachiona kana mutemo haungokuvinge wakagarapo usina kuuchora wobva wabakwa wokandigwa kuchitokisi. Izveni so I know kuti vari kutaura nyaya yahonorable Sikala na honorable Stone, but zvavakaita zviri pajekerere vakabuda vakati aiwa hende tinorova vanhu vakatotaura izvozvo, and zvikabuda ipo paya vanhu vakaenda for sure kukanopiswa dzimba kukarohwa neikoko. Saka obviously kana wadaro ukalida that mutemo unozokutevera wokubata iwewe because wabuda paoda kuita. Saka ma-human rights aripo asi mutemo futi uripo, and mutemo hauzokuspeya iwewe because uri nhengo yebato rakati, unongouya chete ukangosumbudzana newe ikoko.
Siyakuzwa kakhulu Chuma. NgesiNdebele siyabona ukuthi kulabantu abantu bayakhahlanyezwa nguhulumende. Ukhanya liqiniso sibili wena ubona njani khona ngamafitshane sibili isikhathi sasiphele?
Ungakhangela bakhona abantu abaningi kakhulu abakusema abadlula laphikisayo ku-Triple C for Lokuzen abangakazi uzotana babotshiwe, kodwa sibazi bengamalokuzen activists agcweleyo sibili, but kabakazi bebotshwe ngenxa yokuthi abawephula umthetho. Ungephula umthetho uzakulanda kuphela. Ngathi sikhuluma ngendaba eka-honorable Sikala lo honorable Stone, into abayenzayo ngale echithungiza ngale bephuma egcekeni besithi right sifuna ukuyatshaya abantu asameni abantu ezizana kumele betshaywe, kuhanjwe ngalo kwatshaywa kwatshiswa lezi zindlu, then umthetho usuke wazobabamba besothi wona ngama-human rights. Kanti ama-rights alabo abantu abatshayiweyo nalabo abathisela izinto-keni wona angaphi? So abantu laba bengaphunga uhlala bekhala ukuthi na kuyahlukunyezwa. Baningi abantu abasapota i-Triple C esibaziyo abangakazi bebotshwe ngisho not even one day. The other day bengikhuluma noLozen u-honorable Bhebhe u-Abednego Bhebhe sithi yena enjana so angazi ngizwe ubotshiwe, kodwa is a staunch and a big Lokuzen activist e-Triple C, kodwa kakazi abotshwe ngenxa yokuthani kakazi enjani ephula umthetho. So umthetho kaphonga ubuya nje ubuphonga ubotshwe ungezanga lutho ukuthi ngenxa yokuthi we-Triple C usufuna ukubotshwa. So akula ma-human rights avioletayo lapha, but abantu bazenzela into yabo ngabomo, and ekwazi futhi kulesi sikhathi engxenye asakwazi mhlawumbe yabe ku-payroll yangona into la ungavela ubotshwe so usuyaphiwa imali kumbe abanye ngayizwa iZimbabwe, kodwa khonokho akulunganga. Umthetho ayisukuthi uphonga ulanda esijaleni.
Thank you very much. That was Mr. Joseph Chuma, a ZANU-PF Central Committee member and former Pelanda Wampopoma member of Parliament. We have now come to the end of our show today. We thank our guests that joined us on this show. That is Mr. Joseph Chuma and Mr. Ambrose Sibindi. And this is Gibbs Dube in Washington saying, don't miss our programs. We are always here for you. And to our listeners, we hope to get you on board next time. Signing off from Maryland, from Washington, D.C. I'm now used to Maryland. This is Gibbs Dube saying good night.